A young prince and a radiant princess stood before the shrine of the gods. The flickering flames of the altar cast dancing shadows on their faces as they clasped hands, sealing a bond unknown to the world. I, Kellen, son of King Adaro of Luba, take you, Amina, daughter of the great King Atui of Dauna, as my wife before the gods, the prince declared, his voice steady with conviction. And I, Amina, take you, Kellen, as my husband, bound by the gods and the spirits of our ancestors, the princess responded, her dark eyes gleaming with love. The priest, draped in a robe woven with the feathers of sacred birds, poured libations onto the earth. The gods have heard your vows. This union is blessed and cannot be undone, not by man, not by war, not even by time itself. But fate is cruel. That night, as Amina rested her head against Kellen's chest, dreaming of their future, a royal messenger arrived with grave news. Kellen's father, the king of his homeland, was dying. By dawn, the prince was gone, riding into the unknown, unaware that the love he left behind carried his unborn son. Weeks after Kellen's departure, shadows fell upon Amina's kingdom. A ruthless warlord named Thimba, a man with a scarred face and eyes cold as steel, led his army through the city gates. Fire consumed the palace, screams filled the night, and blood stained the marble floors. King Atui of Dauna was slain in the presence of his two daughters, Aya Ana and Amina. "Take Amina to my chambers," Thimba commanded, gripping the hilt of his blood-stained sword as Ayana, 6 months pregnant, wept profusely for her slayed husband and father. Amina, now pregnant, became his captive. He forced her into marriage, declaring himself ruler of the conquered kingdom. Though she despised him, she endured for the sake of the life growing inside her. Months later, she bore a son, but Thimba believed the child to be his own. She named him Addo, meaning blessed, but in her heart he was Kellen's son, the Prince of Luba. Meanwhile, in the distant kingdom of Luba, Kellen buried his father and ascended the throne, unaware that war loomed on the horizon. Thimba was not content with one kingdom, he wanted them all, and decided to attack Luba. War erupted between the two kingdoms. Kellen, now a formidable warrior king, led his forces against Addo. Swords clashed, arrows darkened the sky, and the rivers ran red. After 2 years of grueling battle, Kellen emerged victorious, slaying the warlord in combat. But he was too late. He found Amina dying in her chambers, a deep wound in her side. "Our son, he is alive," she whispered, her breath shallow. "He is with my elder sister, Aya Ana. Please protect him." With those final words, she was gone. Kellen wept, clutching her lifeless body, but he knew he had no time to grieve. He entrusted Princess Aya Ana with raising their son, providing for them richly but staying distant, for the child reminds him of his dead love. Years passed, and Kellen married 3 wives, each bearing him a son. But his household was far from peaceful. His wives, Abini, Morayo, and Kasandu, were constantly scheming against each other, bribing palace elders and pushing their sons toward the throne. Their sons, Umi, Jia, and Raza, grew into arrogant, power-hungry young boys. They lacked discipline, humility, and brotherhood. To teach them unity, the king sent them on a journey to retrieve a rare herb from the sacred forest, forbidding them from taking guards. It was supposed to be a bonding trip for his sons to take care of each other, but greed and distrust poisoned their hearts. Each prince sought to eliminate the others, and by nightfall, all 3 lay dead, victims of their own treachery. The kingdom whispered of a curse, saying the gods had punished the king for his past sins. Haunted by grief, Kellen sought the wisdom of the ancestors. The answer was clear. Seek the firstborn, the child of the true union. Thus, he sent for the son he had left behind. Meanwhile, in a quiet village in Duana, Aya Ana raised her son and Kellen's son together. She had grown to love Ado, the king's son, and her nephew as her own, and yet she resents the fact that her father's kingdom was annexed as one with the kingdom of Luda. The drums of war had barely silenced when Aya Ana realized what had been taken from her. She had watched from the palace balcony as warriors dragged the bodies of the fallen warlord's men out of the city. Her home, the kingdom where she was born and raised, had been shattered in a single day. And standing victorious over its ruins was the man who had caused it all, the prince who had returned as a conqueror. Her anger festered like an unhealed wound. Yes, the warlord Thimba had been a tyrant. Yes, the kingdom had suffered under his rule. But when Kellen, now crowned king, defeated him, he did not restore the throne to her father's bloodline. He did not place her son at the head of the kingdom that was rightfully his to inherit. Instead, he merged the two kingdoms as one. And just like that, her son's birthright was erased. Aya Ana had stood before the gathered elders of her father's kingdom. The air in the grand hall was heavy with incense, masking the stench of death that still lingered from the war. "You swore loyalty to my father," she spat, her voice trembling with fury. "You swore to protect our kingdom, our bloodline." The elders, men who had once bowed before her father, shifted uncomfortably in their seats. One of them, an old man with deep lines etched into his face, spoke. "Aya Ana, we did what was necessary. We had no army, no strength to resist the warlord. If he had not come, we would have perished." "He did not save us. He conquered us," she snapped. "And you welcomed him as king?" Another elder sighed. "There is peace now. The war is over." Aya Ana clenched her fists. "At what cost? My son was born of royal blood just as much as Ado. Had my father lived, my son would have been king." "Your father is dead," the old man said quietly. "The past cannot be undone." Aya Ana's rage burned in her chest. She had expected resistance, but she had not expected such easy surrender. These men had given up their kingdom without a fight. They had handed over everything her father built and called it peace. She had been betrayed, not just by Ado, but by her own people. As days turned into weeks, Aya Ana's resentment had grown. She watched as Ado was celebrated across both lands. His name was sung in the streets, his banners raised in both palaces. Even her own servants whispered about his justice, his kindness, his wisdom. But all Aya Ana saw was the man who had stolen her son's future. One night, as she sat in her chamber, staring at the flickering flames of an oil lamp, she made a decision. "If they will not give my son his rightful place," she murmured, "then I will take it for him." She raised the boys as brothers, but in her heart she knew only one of them was worthy. She watched them grow, studying their differences. Enzi was bold, proud, and quick to command. The other boy, her nephew, was quieter, more thoughtful. The resemblance to his mother was undeniable, but Aya Ana ignored it. So she devised a plan. The moon hung high the night Aya Ana made her decision. She sat on a woven mat inside her hut, her son Enzi beside her, his 6-year-old hands tracing patterns in the dust. The fire flickered between them, casting long shadows on the mud walls. "They will come for him soon," Ayana murmured, more to herself than to her son. Enzi looked up. "For who?" "For Addo," she replied, her voice measured. "He is the king's firstborn. He is the rightful heir." The boy's face darkened. Even at 6, Enzi had an uncanny awareness of what was his, or what he believed should be his. "But I am older," he pointed out. Aya Ana nodded, stroking his head. Yes, my son, you are. And you are stronger, wiser. You were born to rule. Enzi puffed up, pride glistening in his young eyes. Then why should they take him? Ayana leaned closer, her voice lowering. Because the world does not always give power to those who deserve it. It is taken. She cupped his small hands in hers. Listen to me, Enzi. If the palace calls, you must go in his place. You will wear the prince's robes, sit in the prince's seat, and one day you will be king. Enzi's little heart raced with excitement. And what about him? Ayana sighed, glancing toward the room where her nephew slept peacefully. He is soft-hearted, he will not fight you, and he will never know the truth. But if he does? She looked at her son, her grip on his hands tightening. Then you must be strong, my son. No one must take what belongs to you. You are the rightful prince, she told him. Your blood is just as noble as his. Do not let anyone take what is yours. Enzi smiled. I will be king. And with that, the seed of deception was sown. The two boys grew up like brothers, but their differences were stark. Enzi, the elder by only 6 months, was dominant in every way. He was taller, louder, and quicker to anger. If there was a game to be played, he would be the leader. If there was food to be shared, he would take the largest portion. If there was an argument, he would have the final word. The king's heir, named Ado, was different. He was quiet, observant, and patient. He never fought his brother for dominance, even when Enzi pushed him too hard. Ayana loved them both, but her favoritism was clear. If Enzi cried, she comforted him. If he wanted something, she gave it. If he bullied Ado, she turned a blind eye. And when the elders of the village praised Ado for his kindness, she would only nod. But when they praised Enzi for his strength, her face would glow with pride. When they played and Ado won a game, she would pull Enzi aside. Why do you let him win? A king must never lose. And when the boy did something kind, when he helped a servant carry water or shared his food, Ayana scolded him. Kindness is weakness, she warned. A ruler does not beg for love. He commands respect. Slowly, she molded Enzi into the image she desired. One day, when they were 10, Enzi demanded to ride the village's only horse. It is too wild, an elder warned. Let the horsekeeper train it first. But Enzi scoffed. I am the son of a king. No horse can throw me. He mounted it despite the warnings. The moment he tugged the reins, the animal reared up and threw him into the dirt. He cried out, clutching his arm in pain. Ado rushed forward, kneeling beside him. Are you hurt? Enzi shoved him away. Leave me alone. That night, as Ayana treated Enzi's bruises, she did not scold him for his recklessness. Instead, she whispered, A true king does not show weakness. If you fall, you must rise and try again. Ado, sitting in the corner, only watched. He understood, even at that young age, that no matter what he did, he would never be first in Ayana's eyes. Years passed, and the boys became young men. Enzi grew into a striking figure, his arrogance sharpening into a sense of entitlement. He walked with the swagger of a king, though he had never set foot in the palace. Ado remained steady, calm, reserved, yet strong in a quiet way. He had his mother's eyes, though he did not yet know it. Then, the day of reckoning arrived. The palace sent its emissaries. The prince was to be summoned. Ayana's heart pounded as she faced the messengers. She could feel the weight of her deception pressing upon her, but there was no turning back now. She presented her own son as the prince and turned to Ado, forcing a smile. You must accompany your brother to the palace, she said gently. He will need your guidance. Ado hesitated. But, hush, child, she whispered, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Trust me." Ado, believing Aya Anna to be his mother, willingly accompanied his brother to the palace to serve him as instructed. She did not weep when she watched them leave. She did not hesitate. She had secured her son's place in history, or so she thought. And so the two young men set out for the palace with the emissaries, one as a prince, the other as his humble companion. Only one of them knew the truth. The grand palace of Luba Kingdom stood like a mountain of gold and stone, its towering walls carved with the stories of past rulers. The scent of burning incense filled the air as the royal drums sounded in welcome. Servants lined the courtyard, their heads bowed in respect. Enzi grinned as they approached the palace gates, his posture straightening with self-importance. "Finally, where I belong," he murmured. Ado, walking just behind him, felt a strange unease. The palace was beautiful, but something about it made him feel out of place. The moment they stepped inside, the palace attendants swarmed around them, dressing Enzi in rich royal robes embroidered with golden patterns. His feet were adorned with leather sandals fit for a prince, and his neck was draped with coral beads. Ado, on the other hand, remained in his simple attire, plain brown tunic and sandals worn from years of use. A council elder stepped forward, bowing deeply. "Welcome home, Prince Enzi." Enzi smirked. He liked the way that sounded. Ado bowed as well, showing respect. But even as he did, he caught the gaze of the king watching from his throne. The old man's eyes lingered on him longer than expected, a strange recognition flickering across his face. For a moment, the king's breath caught in his throat. "He looks like Amina." Enzi quickly made himself at home in the palace, reveling in the luxury he had always dreamed of. He feasted on roasted meats, drank the finest palm wine, and lounged on silken cushions. But his arrogance grew. He treated the servants with disdain, barking orders as if they were beneath him. When the elders tried to advise him on royal duties, he scoffed, dismissing their wisdom. "The throne is mine," he would say, "and I will rule as I see fit." Ado, meanwhile, spent his days quietly observing the ways of the palace. He helped the servants when no one was looking, listened attentively to the elders' lessons, and even assisted the palace healer with herbal mixtures. His noble nature did not go unnoticed. The king found himself watching Ado more and more, his heart stirring with memories of the woman he had loved. One evening, as they dined in the great hall, the king spoke. "Ado, you carry yourself with great wisdom. Tell me, what do you think makes a great ruler?" Enzi bristled. "A strong ruler must be feared," he interrupted before Ado could answer. "A king must never show weakness." The king frowned. "And what do you say, Ado?" Ado hesitated, then answered. "A great ruler is one who serves his people. Fear may command obedience, but love earns loyalty." A murmur spread across the hall. The elders nodded in approval. Enzi clenched his jaw. Why does he always have to act so noble? As the days passed, the king found himself drawn to the quiet strength of the boy who was supposed to be a mere companion. He reminded him of Amina, his beloved princess, his lost love. Ayana sat alone in the dimly lit chamber of her father's old palace, reading the message her son Enzi sent to her. Her son had left for the king's court, and with him, her dreams of power. Yet, power was never given, it was seized. She could not afford to let things unfold on their own. She had taken the first step by placing Enzi in the palace, but she knew it would not be enough. The king was no fool, and the boy she had sent alongside her son, the true heir, was proving to be a problem. The king was noticing him. This was a dangerous development. She could not allow King Kellen to look too closely. She could not allow the truth to slip out. Enzi was to be king, and she would ensure it. Ayana sent secret messengers to her son, reminding him of his purpose. "You must never doubt your place," she wrote in her letter. "Hold your head high. Speak with authority. Do not let them see fear in your eyes." But she also warned him. "The king is watching the other boy. He favors him. You must make him unworthy in the eyes of the court. Find his weaknesses and expose them." Her son, ever obedient, replied swiftly. "The fool is loved by the people," Enzi wrote back. "He is kind, generous, and humble. They whisper about him in the palace. Even the king listens when he speaks." Ayana's anger burned. She had not expected this. She had assumed that Enzi's natural arrogance and dominance would overshadow the true heir. But instead, the very qualities she had discouraged in her own son, kindness, patience, wisdom, were winning hearts. She needed to act. If she could not change the king's heart, she would change the minds of those around him. She sent word to some of her allies in the Elder Council and the powerful chiefs. Subtly, rumors began to spread. "Have you noticed how the king favors the other boy? They say he has an unnatural charm. Perhaps the gods are at work. Or perhaps witchcraft." The whispers reached the ears of the court, and soon, even the king's closest advisors began to question what they saw. Why did this boy remind the king so much of his lost love? Why did he carry himself with such nobility, though he was raised outside the palace? Why did the people love him more than the crowned prince? Doubt was a powerful weapon, and Ayana wielded it like a blade. Emboldened by his mother's guidance, Enzi became more aggressive. He began to assert himself in court, interrupting meetings to give his opinions. He dressed in the richest silks, gold threaded into his robes. He commanded the servants with sharp words, making sure all knew who the prince was. He mocked his brother, belittled him in public, and called him weak. Yet, no matter what Enzi did, Ado remained unchanged. He did not fight back. He did not respond with anger. Instead, he continued to show kindness, not only to the people, but even to Enzi himself. It was at the festival of the harvest that the most beautiful maiden in the kingdom, Nema, met the two brothers. Nema was a vision of grace, her dark skin glowing like polished ebony, her hair adorned with golden cowries. She moved like the wind, light and untouchable, and when she smiled, men lost their words. Many suitors had sought her hand, but she had refused them all. That day, as she walked through the palace gardens, she encountered Enzi and Ado. Enzi, ever the boastful one, stepped forward. "Ah, the famous beauty of Luba. I have heard tales of you, Nema, but they do not do you justice." Nema gave a polite nod, but her eyes drifted toward Ado, who stood quietly beside him. "And you?" she said. "Who are you?" Enzi scoffed. "He is only my brother, a commoner who came to the palace with me." Nema frowned slightly at Enzi's arrogance, then turned back to Ado. "You do not speak much." Ado bowed slightly. "It is better to listen than to speak without thought." Nema smiled. "A wise man." From that moment, Nema sought Ado's company, walking with him through the palace gardens, discussing philosophy and the ways of the world. Enzi seethed. How dare she choose him over me? His jealousy burned deep, and with jealousy came hatred. He began spreading whispers in the palace, lies that Ado was seeking to undermine him, that he sought to steal his birthright. He paid servants to watch him, hoping to find something, anything, that could be used against him. But Ado had nothing to hide. One night, Enzi cornered him in the courtyard. "Stay away from Nema," he warned, his voice low with rage. Ado met his gaze evenly. "I have done nothing to you, brother." "You are not my brother," Enzi spat. You are a nobody. Ado sighed. If that is what you believe, then I will not argue. Enzi's fists clenched. He wanted to strike him, but something held him back. Perhaps the knowledge that Ado was not afraid of him. That made him hate him even more. Nema had made her choice, and her choice was clear. She walked beside Ado in the palace gardens, her indigo robes flowing like a river. They spoke of dreams, of the world beyond the palace walls, of honor and love. The impostor watched from a distance, his fists clenched. It should have been him. He was the prince. He was the one meant to have the most beautiful maiden in the kingdom. Enzi, fueled by jealousy, tried to claim Nema by force. He cornered her one evening in the grand hall, gripping her wrist. "You will be mine," he hissed. Nema did not cower. She met his gaze with fire in her eyes. "I will never be yours," she said. "You may have a title, but you have no heart." Before he could retaliate, Ado stepped between them. "Let her go." His voice was calm, but there was steel beneath it. The impostor sneered. "Do you think you can challenge me? I will not fight my brother. I am not your brother. I am your prince, and you should do well to know that," he yelled. The words hung in the air. Silence filled the grand hall. Even the servants paused, sensing something unnatural in the declaration. The impostor stormed away, but that night the seeds of hatred had fully taken root. Ayana, anxious about what is happening, decided to visit the palace with the excuse that she misses her son Ado and Prince Enzi. She was given a royal welcome with feast and songs. Immediately after the feast, Prince Enzi went to her chamber to complain about the king's treatment of Ado. Ayana knew immediately that Enzi was losing ground. The king, despite her best efforts, was drawing closer to the boy she had tried to erase, and it was time to act. If you cannot make him look weak, then you must make him look guilty. Enzi understood. A plan was set in motion. A crime would be committed, and the blame would fall upon the boy who should have never returned. Ayana knew the moment was near. The king had grown too fond of the boy. The elders had started speaking of his wisdom. The people whispered his name in admiration. And worst of all, Kellen himself had begun questioning why he felt such an inexplicable bond with the so-called companion of his son. It was dangerous. If the truth came to light, all of Ayana's sacrifices would be for nothing. Enzi had to secure his place once and for all, and to do that, the other boy had to fall. Ayana needed a crime so great that it would cast doubt upon the boy's character forever, one that would make the king himself turn against him. She would not fail. One evening, under the glow of flickering oil lamps, Ayana met with a group of powerful allies, the elders she had bribed and the nobles who sought favor and feared the shift in royal favor. They all had a stake in Enzi's rise. "The boy must be removed," she said coldly, "but not by blood. A dead boy becomes a martyr. A disgraced one is forgotten." A chief leaned forward. "What do you propose?" Ayana's lips curled into a smile. "He must be caught committing an unforgivable offense, one that will strip him of the king's trust and the people's love." One of the elder, a man wary of the boy's growing influence, spoke cautiously. "A crime against the gods? Or the king himself?" Ayana whispered. The room fell silent. Then a noblewoman nodded. "If he were caught trying to poison the king..." "No," Ayana said. "Poisoning is a coward's crime. We need something worse, something that would shake the kingdom." Her gaze hardened. Theft. Deep within the king's treasury was a sacred relic, a golden staff said to be blessed by the gods. It was a symbol of divine rule passed down for generations. To steal it was to commit treason against both the throne and the heavens. No one, not even the king's own sons, was allowed to touch it. Ayahana's plan was simple. The relic would go missing, and it would be found in the boy's possession. A perfect crime, a perfect fall. And once the king cast him out, there would be no one left to challenge Enzi's position. The night was moonless when Enzi entered the sacred treasury. He had memorized the paths, the positions of the guards, the rhythm of their patrols. The doors creaked as he slipped inside, his breath steady, his mind focused. The staff rested on a stone pedestal, glowing under the dim torchlight. It was beautiful, ancient, powerful. For a brief moment, Enzi felt the weight of what he was about to do, but then he remembered his mother's words. If you cannot make him look weak, then you must make him look guilty. With careful hands, he took the staff and hid it beneath his robes. Before dawn, it would be discovered, and by sunset, his rival would be ruined. The kingdom awoke to chaos. The sacred staff was missing. Priests wailed in despair. Nobles whispered in fear. And the king's wrath was swift. "Find the thief!" Kellen roared. The entire palace was searched. No stone was left unturned. And then, in the quiet of the young prince's chambers, the guards found it. The sacred staff, hidden beneath his sleeping mat. Gasps filled the air as the soldiers dragged the boy from his quarters. His face was calm, but his eyes were confused. "I did not take it," he said simply. "Did you take the staff?" the king asked, his voice cold. "No," Ado said firmly. "I swear upon the gods, I did not take it." The elders murmured. Ayahana stood beside Ado, her arms crossed, with a feigned concern look. She knelt in front of the king. "Please forgive my son." "I will take him away with me," she pleaded with crocodile tears, her lips pressed, hiding a thin line of triumph. But then, a sudden hush, a gasp. All eyes turned to Enzi. A strange, glowing mark had appeared on the back of his hand, dark, twisted, as though the skin had been burned by unseen flames. The mark of the gods, a sign of guilt. The elders looked at one another in shock. The high priest stepped forward, eyes wide. "The gods have judged." Silence fell. And then Enzi fell to his knees. Tears streamed down his face. "I only did it because of you, Father." The court watched in stunned silence. The king's brows furrowed. "Because of me?" Enzi sobbed. "You have never loved me the way you love him." His voice cracked. "You ignore me. You always look at him with warmth, but at me with duty. Even my mother, she favors him over me. He takes everything, your love, my mother's attention, the respect of the people. What do I have left?" He trembled. "I only wanted to make him look bad, just once. Just once, I wanted you to see me, to love me." The king's heart twisted in pain. He looked at his alleged son, so full of bitterness, of envy, of hunger for something he did not understand. And for the first time, the king saw it, the difference. The boy before him did not resemble him in spirit, in heart, or in nature. Where was the nobility? Where was the wisdom? How could his blood produce such selfishness? His mind raced with memories, his beloved princess, the woman he had loved and lost. She would have wept if she had seen this. His heart ached, and deep within, he began to doubt. But he remained silent. The court watched, waiting for his judgment. Finally, the king sighed, rubbing his temples. "You have shamed me, Enzi." Enzi's shoulders shook. But then, the king turned to the court. "This matter is closed." The elders frowned. One of them, a bold man, stepped forward. "But my king, the gods have revealed his guilt." "I said the matter is closed," the king repeated firmly. Enzi gasped in relief. The king had chosen to protect him, perhaps out of duty, perhaps out of denial, or perhaps a part of him simply wasn't ready to face the truth. But deep in his heart, doubt had taken root, and it would only grow. The king could no longer ignore what he felt in his heart. That night, the king sat alone in his chambers, staring into the flickering flame of his lantern. His thoughts were restless. He recalled the first day he saw his son, barely 2 years old, in the palace at Dauna after the war. He was brought to him, the way the child clung to Ayana, how she spoke for him, how she assured him that he was the rightful heir. He was 6 months younger than Ayana's son. It had never felt like a coincidence. His mind wandered to Ado, the boy who carried himself with grace, whose voice carried wisdom beyond his years. The way his heart had recognized him before his mind had even considered the possibility. Had he been blind? Had he been deceived? The mark of the gods did not lie, and neither did his heart. For the first time in years, he began to wonder. Had he crowned the wrong son? He wondered through the night. Ayana stormed into Enzi's chambers that night. "You fool," she hissed, slamming the door shut. Enzi sat on his bed, his face buried in his hands. He looked up, eyes red. "Mother, I did not know the mark will appear on my arm." She struck him across the face. "You should have sent one of your servants to steal the item," she hissed. He gasped, holding his cheek in shock. "You do not have the luxury of emotions," she snapped. "Every mistake you make puts us in danger." She stepped closer, gripping his chin. "You are the prince because I made you the prince, but do not think for one moment that I will allow you to ruin everything I have built." Enzi swallowed hard. "Do you understand me?" she whispered. He hesitated, but then he nodded. Ayana sighed, stepping back. "You must be careful now. The king is beginning to suspect." Enzi's breath hitched. "What should we do?" She closed her eyes for a moment, then exhaled. "We must act before he does." A cold silence filled the room. Enzi's fingers curled into fists. He was not ready to lose the throne. Ayana sat in the dimly lit chamber, her fingers drumming against the table. The flickering lantern cast long shadows on the walls, mirroring the storm brewing within her. Enzi stood before her, his jaw tight, his fists clenched. The sting of her earlier slap still burned his cheek, but he did not dare protest. The words his mother had spoken haunted him. "We must act before he does," she repeated. The king was beginning to doubt. The gods had marked him. It was only a matter of time before the truth unraveled completely. And if that happened, he would lose everything. Ayana's eyes flicked toward the door, ensuring no one was listening. Then she leaned forward, her voice sharp as a blade. "The king is weak," she said. "His grief over his son's deaths has clouded his mind. He is questioning the gods, questioning himself." Enzi swallowed. "But he still protects me." "For now," she snapped. "Do you think that will last forever?" Silence. She exhaled, her fingers tightening around her cup. "The throne is yours, Enzi. I made it yours, and I will not let anyone take it from you." Her eyes darkened. Not the king, not the elders, not him. She did not need to say the name, the true heir. Enzi clenched his jaw. "What do we do?" Ayana's lips curled into a smirk. "We make sure the king never questions you again." A pause. Enzi's stomach twisted. "Are you saying we—" "Yes." He froze. She reached for his hand, squeezing it. "Listen to me. If he is gone, you will rule undisputed. There will be no one to oppose you." Enzi's pulse pounded in his ears. He hesitated, but only for a moment. Then he nodded, and the fate of the kingdom was sealed. The king's dreams would not leave him. Each night he saw Amina's face, her sorrowful eyes pleading with him to see the truth. He could no longer ignore the weight in his chest. One morning, he called for Ayana. She entered the throne room, her head bowed, but there was a tightness in her posture. She had expected this day to come. "Ayana," the king said slowly, watching her closely, "tell me again how my son was raised in your care." Ayana's heart pounded, but she forced a calm smile. "My king, after the war took his mother, I raised him as my own. He was a quiet boy, strong but wise." The king nodded. "And his brother?" She hesitated. "They grew up together. They are like twins." "Yes," the king murmured, his fingers tapping against his armrest. "Like twins." He leaned forward. "Tell me, Ayana, if I were to summon the gods to confirm his blood, should I expect anything surprising?" Ayana's breath caught. She could not let that happen. The gods would expose everything. "My king, I swear upon my life, he is your son." The king stared at her for a long moment before leaning back. "You are dismissed." As Ayana hurried from the room, she knew she had to act quickly. Far from the palace, in a quiet estate nestled between rolling hills and thick forests, the true heir sat by the river's edge, watching the water ripple beneath the moonlight. He did not know he was a prince. He did not know the burden that awaited him, but he knew he was different. For as long as he could remember, his mother, his aunt, though he did not know it, had looked at him with sadness in her eyes. She had raised him well, yet there were always moments where she would pause, as if seeing a ghost. And when the king's emissary came all those moons ago, she had clutched him tighter than ever before. "Stay. You do not belong there." And yet, he had gone, to support his brother, to help him settle into the palace life. But palace life had revealed things he had not expected. The way the king looked at him with a strange mix of longing and recognition. The way the people spoke of his kindness, whispering that he reminded them of the late princess. The way his brother, the arrogant, spiteful Enzi, looked at him with barely contained hatred. And now, the incident with the sacred staff. Something was wrong. The truth was on the edge of his mind, just beyond his grasp, and soon he would uncover it. But first, he had to survive. Because deep in the palace, betrayal was already in motion. That evening, as Nema walked with Ado by the palace fountains, she spoke softly. "You are not safe here." Ado looked at her in surprise. "What do you mean?" "Enzi hates you," she said plainly. "I see it in his eyes. He will not rest until you are gone." Ado sighed. "He is my brother." Nema had not been blind to the growing tension between the two brothers. She saw how Enzi's arrogance had sharpened into something darker, how his eyes burned with jealousy whenever Ado was nearby. She shook her head. "Number he is your rival." She took his hand, her voice urgent. "Promise me, if anything happens, you will protect yourself." Ado hesitated. "Nema, I only wish to live in peace." She touched his cheek, her eyes searching his. "Then you are already greater than him." In that moment, Ado realized that Nema's heart had already chosen him, and so did Enzi. From a shadowed corner, Enzi watched, his fingers curling into fists. She had chosen Ado. Again. That night, Ayana found her son pacing angrily in his chambers. "She loves him," Enzi growled. "The king favors him. The elders whisper about him." He turned to his mother, his eyes wild. "He is going to take everything from me." Ayana grabbed his hands. "No, my son, I will not allow it." She lowered her voice. "You must act before the king calls for the gods." Enzi frowned. "What do you mean?" Ayana took a deep breath. "The gods will reveal the truth, and when they do, you will lose everything. Unless..." She hesitated. "Unless what?" Enzi demanded. She met his gaze. "Unless he disappears before that happens." A slow smile crept across Enzi's face. The next night, under the cover of darkness, on a moonless night, he made his move. At dawn, the guards discovered Addo's chambers empty, his bed untouched. His sandals were by the door, undisturbed. Enzi, driven by jealousy and fear of exposure, had orchestrated the kidnapping with the help of a few loyal servants. They ambushed Addo as he walked through the palace gardens, silencing him with a cloth soaked in herbs and spiriting him away into the dense forest. When Addo failed to appear for the morning council, the palace was thrown into chaos. The king, his heart gripped with fear, summoned his guards. "Find him!" the king commanded, his voice trembling with a mix of anger and desperation. "Search every corner of the kingdom. Leave no stone unturned. I will not rest until Addo is found." The guards spread out, scouring the palace grounds, the nearby villages, and the surrounding forests. The king himself joined the search, his face etched with worry. He could not understand this fear for someone else's son, a boy he has grown to love. "No, no, I cannot lose him," he muttered. For days, the search continued. The king barely slept, his mind tormented by visions of Amina, offering sacrifices and pleading for their guidance. Meanwhile, deep in the forest, Addo awoke in a small, dimly lit hut. His hands were bound, and his head throbbed from the herbs. A kind old hunter, who had stumbled upon him, was tending to his wounds. "Who are you, boy?" the hunter asked, his voice gentle. "I am Addo," he replied, his voice weak but steady. "I was taken from the palace." The hunter's eyes widened. "The palace? Then you must be the one they are searching for." The hunter brought Addo back to the palace, where the king was waiting anxiously. When the gates opened and Addo stepped through, the king's heart soared. He rushed forward, his robes billowing behind him, and embraced Addo tightly. The king whispered, his voice choked with emotion, "I thought I had lost you." Addo, though shaken, felt a warmth he had never known. "I am here, my king," he said softly. The elders who had gathered in the courtyard erupted into cheers. Many of them had grown fond of Addo's quiet wisdom and kindness, and they were relieved to see him safe. "The gods have answered our prayers," one elder declared. "The kingdom is whole once more," another added. Ayana, watching from the shadows, felt a cold knot of fear tighten in her chest. The king's love for Addo was undeniable, and it threatened everything she had worked for. She knew she had to act quickly. That evening, she approached the king in his chambers. "My king," she began, her voice smooth but laced with urgency, "I am grateful that Addo has been found, but I fear the palace is no longer safe for him. Perhaps it is time for me to take him home. Prince Enzi has settled in, and Addo would be better off away from the dangers here." The king frowned, his gaze piercing. "Why?" "He belongs here, in the palace." Ayana pressed on, her tone insistent. "But my king, think of his safety. The palace is filled with intrigue and danger. He would be safer with me in the village." The king's expression hardened. "I will think about it after the festival of the ancestors. Until then, Addo remains here." Ayana's heart sank, but she masked her frustration with a bow. "As you wish, my king." The festival of the ancestors was a grand celebration, a time to honor the spirits of those who had come before and to seek their blessings for the future. As the festival approached, tension filled the palace. Enzi, though still posing as the prince, grew increasingly paranoid. He could feel the weight of the king's gaze, the whispers of the elders, and the growing affection the people had for Addo. On the night of the festival, the entire kingdom gathered in the sacred grove. The air was thick with the scent of burning incense, and the drums echoed like the heartbeat of the earth. The royal household gathered to offer prayers. It was tradition for the king and the heir to pour libations at the altar. Enzi stepped forward, took the sacred gourd, and tilted it. The wine would not pour. Gasps filled the air. The elders exchanged glances. Whispers spread like wildfire. The gods reject him. The imposter prince's hands trembled. Desperate, he tried again, but the wine remained trapped. Then Addo, who had been standing quietly among the crowd, reached out without thinking. The moment his fingers brushed the gourd, the wine flowed freely. A hush fell over the gathering. The king rose from his seat, his eyes locked onto the boy. "Who are you?" the king whispered. And in that moment, Ayana knew. She had lost. She felt her world collapse. She had gambled everything on Enzi's success, and now it was all unraveling. The palace was thrown into chaos. The elders demanded an explanation. The impostor and his mother were summoned before the throne. Adesua fell to her knees. "Forgive me, my king," she wept. "Speak the truth," the king commanded. And so she did. She told of the deception, the switch, the fear that made her pass off her own son as the heir. The king's rage was a storm. He stood from his throne, his robes billowing, his eyes burning with betrayal. "You stole my son," his voice thundered. Ayana bowed low, pressing her forehead to the floor. "I only wish to protect my child," she whispered. The impostor prince, now trembling, could not meet the king's gaze. "No," Enzi murmured. "This is a lie, a trick. I am the prince." The king's face was carved from stone, his judgment absolute. "You are a fraud, and your deception is an abomination." The royal guard stepped forward, their spears glinting in the torchlight. Enzi's arrogance crumbled into panic. "Father, please. I was only doing what my mother told me. I only wanted to be your son." The court gasped at his desperate confession. The king's expression softened, but only for a moment. "I was never your father, and you have stolen from my true son." He turned to the guards. "Take them away." "No!" Enzi shrieked as the guards seized him. "I am the prince. I am—" His cries were swallowed by the judgment of the gods. Ayana did not struggle as she was dragged before the elders. She did not plead for mercy. She had lived her life in deception, and now the gods had taken everything from her. The king gazed at her, disappointment heavy in his eyes. "You cared for my son and raised him well, yet you stole his birthright. Why?" Tears streaked Ayana's face. "Because I loved my son. I wanted more for him." The king's face darkened. "And what of my son? Did he not deserve more?" Ayana could not answer. "You will not be executed," the king decreed. "That would be too merciful." She raised her eyes in surprise. "You will spend the rest of your days in exile, far from this kingdom. That is my judgment." Ayana bowed her head. She had lost everything, her home, her son, her future, and she accepted her fate. As she was led away, she turned once to look at Addo. "I am sorry, my son," she whispered. He watched her go, sadness flickering in his heart. Though she had wronged him, she had also loved him, and that love had been her greatest mistake. The impostor and his mother were stripped of their titles and exiled. The true son was restored to his rightful place. But the king, even after justice was done, could not shake the sorrow in his heart. He had lost years with his son, years that could never be returned. The young prince, once hidden, now stood tall as the rightful successor, and beside him was Nema, the woman who had chosen him even when the world did not know his name. The king stood before his people, his heart heavy yet relieved. He had been blind, but the gods had given him a second chance. Addo knelt before him, ready to accept his rightful place. The king placed his hand on his son's head. "You are my blood, my heir. May the gods bless your reign with wisdom and strength." The king placed his hand on his son's head. "You are my blood, my heir. May the gods bless your reign with wisdom and strength." Cheers erupted as Addo rose. The kingdom had a new prince, a true prince. With his true heir now at his side, the kingdom saw a new dawn. The room overflows with a jubilant crowd. Elders in white robes weep openly. Warriors raise their spears in salute. Servants and nobles alike cheer, their vibrant garments a tapestry of hope. Sunlight gilds the marble floors and gilded arches, illuminating banners of the kingdom hanging proudly overhead. Outside the palace gates, distant villages shimmer under a clear sky, their fields lush and rivers running clean, symbolizing renewal. Addo's hand rests on the hilt of a ceremonial sword at his waist, its pommel shaped like a lion's head, while the king's crown, a relic of sorrow and triumph, gleams beside the staff. The air thrums with celebration, the echoes of drums and flutes mingling with cries of "the true prince." A single tear slips down the king's cheek as he whispers the blessing, while Addo's calm strength radiates like the dawn, a promise of justice, unity, and a reign forged in humility. The sacred staff's light spills across the throne room, dissolving the shadows of deceit as the kingdom embraces its long-awaited heir. King Kellen stands at the center, his broad shoulders slightly stooped under the weight of crimson robes, his scarred face etched with sorrow even as he gazes upon his son. Addo, now clad in a royal blue tunic edged with silver embroidery, stands tall beside Nema, her hand clasped gently in his. Nema's turquoise gown shimmers faintly, her braids crowned with golden flowers, her eyes reflecting quiet strength and unwavering loyalty. Behind them, the sacred golden staff glows softly on its pedestal, its divine light now muted, a silent witness to justice served and time lost. The crowd, elders, warriors, and villagers, fills the hall, their cheers and murmurs a blend of celebration and solemnity. Banners of the merged kingdoms hang overhead, their colors vibrant but frayed at the edges, a reminder of trials endured. The king's hand rests over his heart, his gaze lingering on Addo and Nema, their poised figures bathed in a beam of sunlight that seems to herald a new era. Outside the palace gates, the first rays of dawn gild distant fields and rivers, symbols of renewal. Yet shadows cling to the corners of the throne room, where the king's regrets linger like ghosts. A single tear traces his weathered cheek as he whispers to the ancestors, "Forgive me," while Addo's calm resolve and Nema's steadfast presence anchor the scene in hope, a fragile balance between redemption and irreparable loss. The gods had tested the king, but they had also given him a second chance. The greed and deception that once plagued the palace had been washed away. And in the farthest reaches of the land, a woman named Ayana sat alone, listening to the whispers of the wind. She had lost everything, but perhaps in her exile, she had also found peace. The tale of Kellen, Amina, Addo, and Ayana would be told for generations, a story of love lost and reclaimed, of deceit punished, and of a kingdom restored to its rightful heir. This is the end of the story. Kindly like, share, and subscribe. Also, don't forget to hit the notification bell so you don't miss a new story. Thank you for watching. Bye.